Thank you very much, Mary-Louise. Thanks to you, to Aline, and all the Contested History team for organizing this. This is a treat for us, and it's wonderful to be able to talk to so many people about what's going on in the Valley of the Fallen. I have to apologize because, as my dear friend Maraya Hristova, I will have to be tiptoeing over which are like quite complex and unresolved issues, but we have a limited time. And so, as I was requested to do like a guided tour, my presentation is going to be a little different because I'm going to be walking with you through images, just trying to imagine that you are there on the spot, and I'll try to show you a little bit about the history of the monument, why it has become so controversial, and which are the possible solutions that could be implemented to undo this very complex monument. And I'm really grateful of Maraya's presentation because it provided the basics to understand what I will be talking about. So I will be just talking over images, and whatever the images suggest me, I will be guiding you as if we were all there in the monument. So let me see if I can move. Okay, here. First of all, is that you have to understand that the monument is a huge investment that started in the post-war years. And this is something that has also been criticized because the amount of money and effort and labor that went into the building is absolutely immense. I just wanted to show you, this is the outside. You can see the cross and also some of the statues of the evangelists, and which are on the base of the cross. And this is the interior of the building. For those of you who haven't been there, it's a quite impressive basilica, 22 meters high and wide, very richly decorated. And so we are talking about a major monument. So let's move back after these three introductory images about what the valley is all about, to one moment that Maraya has already mentioned, which is April 1st, 1940, which is the first anniversary of Franco's military victory. There were like military parades in Madrid, and then there were like a meal in the Royal Palace, in which the German diplomatic authorities, German, Italian, and Portuguese were there. And then Franco moved with all of them to the Valley of the Fallen, and they read the decree that Maraya has already read. It was read formally there to establish the moment of building the monument. It's very important that this to clear up that this monument, Maraya has referred to the imperial aspect of the monument. There is a very clear umbilical cord between the Valley of the Fallen and the monastery of El Escorial, which is the main monument of Spanish empire dating back to the 16th century. It's only 13 kilometers away, and I will explain later how this umbilical cord was activated in funerary terms. So Franco was very involved it was his pet project, pet memory project. So he was very involved in it since the very beginning. He visited it many times. He discussed with the architects. He even made like night visits to the building. So you can see that he was extremely involved. One of the issues that Maraya has raised in her talk is related, and is one of the most controversial now, is related to the labor that was used in the construction of the building. We still don't have the numbers, and we don't have the research behind it. It's been done now, but of course there were like free laborers, but many of them were political prisoners that were offered to work in the Valley of the Fallen and have like a special kind of status, like you work one day and you take one day of the time you have to pay, But this is it's very complicated. because we don't know exactly how many of them were there, how many of them died, which were the conditions in which they lived, and although we have moved forward in this aspect. So it's very important to understand that the Valley of the Fallen is a pantheon on top of everything. So Franco basically wanted to transplant all those who died on his side in the Civil War to the Valley of the Fallen. Obviously, he failed because this is a major investment, but he tried. And this is one crucial moment in the consolidation of the Valley of the Fallen. This is an image from the day before the inauguration in 1959, where the body of José Antonio Primo de Rivera, the founder of the fascist party, Maraya has referred to him, the Martyr of Martyrs, the one who presided over all the list of martyrs and fallen for God and Spain throughout the country. He was moved from the monastery of El Escorial, where he had been transferred 20 years before, right after the war. He was buried on top of the royal pantheon. So he had all the charisma of the aura of empire, inscribed in his body. Franco decided to move this body to the Valley of the Fallen to fortify it in necropolitical terms. No, so it was a very controversial transfer because the Falangistas, the fascists, were not happy with it because they were happier with Primo de Rivera in the monastery of El Escorial on top of the royal pantheon. That was like more hierarchically more important burial place than the Valley of the Fallen. So there were like incidents, and they decided to take him in their shoulders and bring him to the Valley of the Fallen. So you see that the necropolitical tensions in the valley are many and are not just one side against the other, but also internally Franco had problems to complete his project. So what happened is in 1959, around the time, 1958, around the time it was going to be inaugurated, there was a kind of an order coming out of the central government, which was like basically a call for bodies. He wanted to fill the monument. There were a lot of crypts behind the chapels in the monument, and he wanted to bring all these bodies to the Valley of the Fallen. They started to come in 1959. José Antonio was one of the first ones to come to the monument, but in between 1959 and 1983, over 33,800 bodies were brought to the Valley of the Fallen, and we are talking about individual bodies. We are talking about military cemeteries, and we are talking, as I will elaborate later also about Republican mass graves. You can see here some of the images of how these bodies were brought to the monument from Barcelona, from Moncada, from different places across the country. So let's move just to Franco's inaugural speech. That was April 1st, 1959. Remember that the decree that established the building, that set up the building of the monument, it was in 1940. It was like 19 years earlier. Franco, it was a spectacular inauguration. It was actually the first live event to be transmitted by Spanish television. And Franco, in his speech, you can see him here addressing the crowd. In his speech, kind of reaffirmed many of the ideas that Maraya has expressed you about the importance of the crusade, the sacrifices done by the fallen for God and for Spain, the dangers that the anti-Spain that was defeated but was not dead. We should keep alert because the anti-Spain could come back and whatnot. Obviously, for people defending now that the Valley of the Fallen is a place of reconciliation, it's kind of complicated to deal with these issues because this is the foundational discourse of the monument, as the decree that Maraya was talking about was the foundational decree of the monument, and the meaning is beyond clear. So during after the inauguration, there were a lot of this was like the main site for Francoist commemorations, particularly April 1st, but also November 20th, because November 20th was the day when Primo de Rivera was executed in 1936. So it's very important to retain this date, November 20th. So why? Because Franco died also on November 20th in 1975. We don't know exactly how it happened, but after a military state funeral, he was brought to the Valley of the Fallen and buried there. We still don't know if Franco himself had prepared this or not, or it was a decision taken by his top generals. I mean, his top officers at the government, and the king has the king just took over the kingdom a few days before, and so he was the one who signed the decree to transfer the order to transfer Franco to the Valley of the Fallen. No? So he was buried there on November 20th, 23rd, 1975, and this is an image that is taken from the dome, that I will go back to it later, where you can see the Francoist funerary hierarchy of the monument, which is one of the most complex issues in the monument. Here you have Primo de Rivera, still buried there, the founder of the Spanish Fascist Party. This is the main altar, and on the other side of the altar, you had Francisco Franco until, as Aline said, late 2019. So both historical characters died on the same day, November 20th, which means that this date became extremely important in terms of Francoist or nostalgic memory politics. So let's move on. We are jumping back and forth, no? To a process Maraya has already referred to, which is like the starting in the year 2000 of a movement, a social movement, very, very strong social movement that started to open up mass graves containing the bodies of Republican civilians executed by Francoist repressive apparatus, both during the war and the post-war years. We are talking about, according to historians, around 150,000 civilians executed by Franco, 50,000 in round numbers by the Republicans. So these exhumations set in motion a very, very complex and multi-layered memorial process that, as Maraya was saying, even the people who say that nothing has happened, it has transformed the way in which we look at ourselves, at our country. So this is an exhumation in the year 2009 in Milagros, in Burgos. Within this process, there was something that was very, very important. There were some events that were very important and connected the Valley of the Fallen with this memorial process that was initially focused on exhumations of mass graves. This is an exhumation that took place in the year 2003 in Aldea Seca in Avila, where the archaeologists, and they just found some scattered pieces of bones, but most of the bones were not there. There was a skull that was left behind, that you can see here, a broken skull, but basically it was like a non-professional exhumation. So the person who was leading this process, he was looking for his father, Fausto Canales. This is his father, Valerico, who was in this mass grave along with 6 other people, one of them a woman from his village in Avila. He found they realized that there was a former exhumation in the mass grave, and they didn't know anything about it. So he started to do some research, and what he found is that they had been exhumed in 1959 and transferred to the Valley of the Fallen without the knowledge or obviously the permission of the relatives. Fausto Canales has been very instrumental in throwing off balance the value of the fallen, because then he started to go to the media. He was very active in the media. He was he invested all his effort trying to rescue the body of his father, asking the government, asking whoever wanted, asking the judicial system to help get his father and the rest of the people out of the monument. So this movement grew up, and other Republicans or relatives of Republicans realized that their mass graves had been kidnapped in their terms and brought to the Valley of the Fallen to the honor of Franco, and they were part of the cohort of Franco and José Antonio Primo de Rivera, which for them was extremely humiliating. And this was one of the ways in which the Valley of the Fallen got in the radar of the memorialist movement, so to speak. There were others, because as Maraya was saying, Franco's monument started to be challenged, street names started to be changed, and so many, I mean, the memory process that started with exhumations grew up, and started to cover other areas in terms of memory politics. I don't have time to go into it now, but for example, this is one of the few. This is actually the only image we have taken in 1959 of the crypts and the process by which the boxes, both individual and collective boxes, were being stored in the crypts. No? And it was so incredible that this was found by a TV media just doing a documentary on Fausto's story. They discovered that here is the box coming from Aldea Seca. So there's an image. The only image we have has the box where Fausto's father is. So, in very broad terms, this is what happened, and this was the way in which the Valley of the Fallen started to be part of, the memory politics and the memory process in Spain. So, what to do with the Valley of the Fallen? Here, I just wrote a few concepts, because there are like different opinions in which what to do with the Valley of the Fallen. On the extremes, you have people who feel that the Valley of the Fallen is already a monument to reconciliation, and the fact that there are Republicans, I think this is very cynical, but the way in which they defend it is the fact that there are Republicans talks about the generosity of Francisco Franco to bring bodies from both sides under the peaceful cross that embraces them. So this is like the narrative of reconciliation that is coming out of the monument now. No, other people talk about in terms of decommemoration. Re-signification is the term that is most used in Spain, but it's also controversial, because what does re-signification mean? I mean, we have to be discussing also about the content of these concepts. And the one I like most is unlearning before re-signifying, no? Which would be like a different. As Miguel-Luis told you before, now I work temporarily work in the government, and one of my tasks in the State Secretary for Democratic Memory is to try to come with solutions to democratize the monument, or try to bring it into a framework of democratic memory, which is high stakes. I mean, I'm really scared if this is the most controversial monument in Europe. I don't know exactly what to do. No? So I'm going to be again going very fast about a number of things that have been happening since in the Valley of the Fallen. One very important thing that took place is that in 2011, in response to the pressure by the memory movements about the Republicans who have relatives buried in the Valley of the Fallen, and the necessity of providing official memory politics to the monument, there was a commission of experts that was appointed by the socialist government in the time of Zapatero, and I participated in this. And this was we got together in the Palacio de la Moncloa during 6 months. Some of the people who know Spanish memory politics will know some of the people present here, like Ricard Viñas, Carmen Molinero, Alicia Altet, etc. And so during 6 months we came up with a report with a number of recommendations, quite detailed recommendations about how to democratize or transform the monument. This is 2011, 11 years ago. And the main, it was not the main. One important recommendation that was done is that Franco had to be exhumed from the monument, and also that José Antonio Primo de Rivera had to be moved to a non-higher priority place in the monument if anything had to change. And this took this decision, this recommendation to make Franco's funerary hierarchy, both his own tomb and also José Antonio's, took the headlines and kind of overshadowed over other recommendations that were also very interesting in terms of setting up an interpretation center, etc., no, in the on-site interpretation center. So this is to tell you that these are like Republican, an association of Republican Foro por la Memoria, which, I mean, they demonstrate against the monument just on the basis of it, because in the 2007 memory law, it said that the monument there cannot be any political display inside the monument. So all the Franco's commemorations, you know, the November 20th ceremonies and whatnot were forbidden by law in 2007. So this is to show you, that the monument is alive, and there is a lot of contestation even in the very entrance of the monument. Again, jump forward, go to 2019, where Franco was exhumed from the Valley of the Fallen after 18 months of legal fight between the Spanish government, associations of the defense for the defense of the valley, the Francisco Franco National Foundation. Yes, we have one, and also the Franco's family. And finally, he was taken out of the monument, and this is a major blow to the Francoist spirit of the monument, but it's not enough, obviously. No? But this is major. No? So some of the measures that are being taken now, for example, I'm going to be showing very, very briefly. This is a picture taken from one of the camps where the political prisoners lived. This is Banús. You can see the monument on the bottom, but here you can see some of the barracks. And this is the area of the Banús, one of the most important. There were like 3 camps where there were prisoners in the Valley of the Fallen. This is the most the best preserved. And so we had an archaeological digging there that found not only the barracks, but also some of the little houses, improvised houses, where some of the relatives of the prisoners lived. And so we have like a new ongoing kind of patrimonial site, which kind of coexists with the big monument, with the Basilica and the cross. Now you can also hopefully in the future you could be also able to visit this area, which is an area of perpetration. It's not an area of exaltation of a military victory, which kind of generates a contradiction in the Valley of the Fallen. No, so. Other things that are being done now is an integral study of the iconographic program of the monument that has not been done. The tour guides that we have now in the monument basically describe the statues and all the militarism that is built into the monument through the iconography is totally absent from this. These are fallen, these are caídos, fallen, forgotten in Spain, that are just by the altar, the angels with the swords. And if we go to the incredible dome, which has more than 5 million tiles, and it is the main ideological operation in the monument, because it's like it's the place where the martyrs and the fallen, forgotten Spain join the rest of Christian Catholic saints and raise themselves towards salvation. No? And one of the very interesting things about this is that there is an area. This is where there are like scenes of battle, as you can see here. There is a tank. And you have here like this is the the flag of the fascist party, Falange, of the Carlistas, the traditionalists, and other Francoist flags. So this is one of the most controversial issues, and expresses both, on the one side, the one-sidedness of the monument, and on the other side, the militarism that is built into the whole project. No, so the other thing that's going to be done, there's been a political decision taken to try to find the over 100 bodies that have been reclaimed from the crypts. This is an extremely difficult issue. I took this from a newspaper. So you can see that there are like 8 places of burial, like 3 lateral chapels here, 3 lateral chapels here, and in the crossing you have 2 big chapels. Here there are like 3 levels of burial, and here 5 levels of burial that we know, meaning that there are like 28 different levels of burial. So this is a very extremely difficult, and also because the boxes have deteriorated over time. But there is an official effort in place, and there is a forensic, a very sophisticated forensic operation already designed to do this. But it has been stopped by a lawsuit, because there are a number of lawsuits by people defending the Valley of the Fallen. This is, anything that happens in the Valley of the Fallen goes to court. So it's extremely difficult to re-signify or to do anything, because everything has to go through court, and the Spanish courts are not particularly progressive. No? So, and just to finish up, this is, for example, one image that is circulating in the social media, where you have the image of the box by where Fausto Canales' father is, and you see now the state that this was the state of the boxes that are mixed up. Some of them are broken. Some bones have spilled out of the boxes and whatnot. So it's kind of more difficult. This was 12 years ago already. And finally, the other thing that is lacking in the Valley of the Fallen, well, there are many things lacking, but other thing that is in the agenda, so to speak, is that there is a new law of democratic memory that's in Parliament, and we don't know if it's going to be passed or not. It's extremely controversial. But one of the things it says is that the decrees that rule the Valley of the Fallen are going to be undone. And also, there cannot be anybody buried in a place of honor, so to speak. So, in a sense, José Antonio Primo de Rivera has to be unburied from his place. So, there, as you can see, and I'm just speaking very, very fast and over processes that each of them is very, very complex and has many different aspects. No? But just to provide you like an overall idea of what's going on now with the Valley of the Fallen. And the only thing that I can ask now is for your help, because this is, as you can see, this is a major issue. And I think that very importantly, the Valley of the Fallen can only be re-signified or unlearned if we think of it as part of European memory politics. Thank you very much. Yes, obviously, this is a very important point, because there is a shift between historical memory and the law. And the 2007 law is, popularly known as the law of historical memory, and the new law is called the law of democratic memory. So there is a shift in terms of, but this has happened, smoothly, I think, because also many associations have moved from one to the other. And I think there is a chronological aspect to it. On the one hand, in the sense that the concept of historical memory, which is also very complex in Spain, is totally connected to the Civil War, and is totally connected to this process of exhuming mass graves from Republicans. The concept of democratic memory dates back to at least the first democratic constitution in Spain in the early 19th century, which means that includes, obviously, the Civil War, obviously the dictatorship and the repression, but dates farther back. And in a sense, what I think that politicians are trying to do with this term, which is also maybe problematic, and we'll have to see how they do it, is to see that it doesn't matter if you belong to the right or the left. If you work for democracy, you are doing democratic memory, which is more encompassing than the former concept of historical memory. But obviously, these concepts can also be empty containers. So we need to fill them with actual action. So this is what needs to happen in the future. And if the law of democratic memory is passed, then we'll have to decide in Spain what democratic memory means.
That's a very good question. And I think that that's what we all ask ourselves, right? Working in academia on memory politics and on issues related to memory, because in the end, yes, we are working on these topics because we also think something should change. So in that sense, we are somehow also activists, right? Although we are academics. And I'm not sure what the right format is to change things. But I definitely think one of our tasks as memory scholars is to have a voice outside academic circles. So that would be participating in your project, for instance, but it also means teaching. It also means writing in newspapers or writing for other publics. So yeah, being a participant in the debates beyond academia, I think that is very broad, but that's what we can do.
Kind of follows up on what Maraya was speaking about before. Maraya and me, we have been working in the same project for many, many years, and outreach and transference of results and participation in the media and teaching and the diversification of publication formats, not just academic, but also we have participated, for example, in many publications organized by the social movement that are non-academic. But for us, it was a responsibility to try to communicate the knowledge we have. We have a web page which is called the Politics of Memory, and we kind of upload there in open access everything we have. I mean, all the international conference we've done with comparative issues about the Spanish exhumation in Chile, Argentina, Bosnia, Korea, and many other places. We have them uploaded in open access. All our I think that just to complement all our press appearances, TV, media, radio, newspapers, whatever is there. It's open to the public and it's bilingual. So I think it is an important resource, teaching resource. And the relationship with the associations is I think is in general good, but it's also complex. And I can see that I can just say that the greatest complexity is, for example, when within this process of trying to change things based on our knowledge, the knowledge we have acquired during 20 years working with this, and knowing what it's all about, is when you engage with institutions. This is when, when associations start to disagree with, strategically, with what you do, and I think is totally fair. I mean, it's obvious that they can. It's a perfectly feasible opinion. But I also think that we have to engage with institutions if we want to think some. But it's difficult because when you get into an institution, you get into a machinery which goes well beyond you and kind of sucks things out of you, and not exactly the ones you want, and in not the same order, and then you have to negotiate. But this is, I think, important. But we have had throughout the years an excellent relationship with the memorialist movement, and I cannot understand our research projects outside of the memorialist movement, so to speak. We are part of it.
It makes me think of one of the projects we were working on together with Paco, in which we were interested indeed in dialogues between opposing partners, opposing groups within or opposing memory paradigms, or opposing groups having a different view on one specific event in the past. And I think what we try to find there is what are the possibilities of dialogue without creating forms of exclusion. So what can dialogue mean, even if there are different voices, even if they don't really listen to each other, but just coexist maybe in the same forum? Would that be a format in which we can still speak of some kind of sphere in which different memories can exist and can be understood? So we're looking at very different places. We were looking at museums. We were looking at mass grave exhumations in different countries in Europe, and we would call that kind of paradigm agonistic memory. So it would be that kind of public arena where different voices coexist. And yes, that would be, I think, the situation now in Spain. There are different voices. They all have their fora. They coexist in certain arenas, and at least it doesn't lead to war. It doesn't lead to forms of violence, but it also doesn't lead to constructive new memory paradigms. So I think our research project also led us a little bit with more questions than maybe answers to that, to how, do you want that? Does it need to be constructive? Do you need to exclude certain visions, or can they coexist? Yeah, it's super interesting, but I don't think I can answer that right now.
I don't think it should be deleted altogether at all. The thing is that we who work on these things and pay interest, to the memory of the Republicans, are many times criticized because we only pay attention to one side. But this is one of the reasons in our research project we decided to do a history of necropolitics, of civil war necropolitics in Spain, which means that Maraya has talked about the work of Zoe de Canangat on the exhumations in the transition to democracy. Very important, very different from the contemporary ones. Then if you move back a few years earlier, you go to the Valley of the Fallen. We have talked about 34,000 bodies transplanted, 20 years after the war. That's kind of unbelievable, no? It's amazing. And which is like the biggest necropolitical movement in the history of the country. So this is the Valley of the Fallen. But if you go back 20 years more, then you realize that in the post-war years, Franco had very, very clear memory politics. And just thinking about necropolitics, there were hundreds of exhumations. And I could see that in this meeting is Miriam Saka, who just defended her dissertation on early exhumations in the post-war years, in which the Francoist state issued decrees, injected money, experts, the military, and gave meaning and sense to the deaths of those who were killed on his side. So that memory politics is not absent. It has been, it's present, it's inscribed, as Maraya showed you, almost in every village in the walls of the church and whatnot. So what is happening now is kind of a counter memory balance. So, and it will kind of even out, I think, somehow. But it's not that there is no memory of the victims of Francoism. It's all over the place, and their bodies. When they say, "Why don't you pay attention to the exhumations of Francoist victims of Republican repression?" and the answer is, "Tell me where to go." Because they were exhumed in the post-war, most of them, and they are in the municipal cemeteries, in places of honor, fallen forgotten in Spain, with priority places. So, and this is something that we have to understand. So I think this is a very interesting question, because to understand what is happening now, one has to look back and see what happened before in terms of memory politics. No, no. This is not like the German model, no? So far yet. The thing is that, as I said, to re-signify the value of the fallen and to unlearn the value of the fallen, we have to do a lot of research. So first, you have to do research on, the political prisoners, and then which were the companies that benefited from this. The use of prisoners in the value of the fallen, and there are like three main companies, but they don't exist now as they were in the 50s or so, in the 40s or 50s. They have merged with other companies, and it became difficult to try to trace, who they are now, and all of the families. So there is research done on this mostly by research journalists, but this is something that has to be worked through in terms of democratic memory in the future also, definitely.